Do you have a coworker like this? You finally get a break. You grab coffee during lunch. You've had a brutal week. Your manager snapped at you in a meeting. Deadlines piled up. Slack messages never stopped. You're exhausted, but you just need a moment to vent. You sit down, take a breath, and say, "Honestly, this week has been rough." And before you can finish the sentence, they jump in. "Oh, tell me about it. My week was insane. I had back-to-back meetings all day, my manager keeps changing priorities, and I'm basically doing three people's jobs." And just like that, the spotlight shifts. Your frustration disappears, replaced by theirs. You nod. You smile. You say things like, "Yeah, that sounds stressful," or "Wow, that's a lot." But inside, something else happens. You don't feel supported. You feel invisible. You feel like emotional office furniture. You leave that conversation more drained than when you started. If this feels familiar, you're not just dealing with a bad communicator. You're dealing with what psychology calls a conversational narcissist. But here's the part most people misunderstand. They're not doing this because they think they're better than you. They're doing it because they're afraid of what happens when they stop talking. Welcome to the psychology of people who dominate conversations at work. There's a strange relief that comes when an experience finally has a name. Because until then, you assume the problem is you. You tell yourself, "Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I expect too much from coworkers. Maybe work isn't supposed to feel emotionally supportive." But here's the truth. Workplace conversations aren't just small talk. They're where stress is released, where pressure leaks out, where people regulate emotions just enough to keep functioning. So when every attempt to share gets redirected, something subtle happens. You stop speaking up. You keep things surface level. You carry the weight alone. Psychology calls this pattern conversational narcissism. And no, this is not a clinical diagnosis. It's not narcissistic personality disorder. And it doesn't mean your coworker is a villain. It describes a behavioral pattern, not an identity. It's what happens when conversations stop being shared spaces and become one-person stages, especially in environments where performance matters, visibility equals value, and silence feels risky. Our instinct is to judge. We label them as self-centered, attention-seeking, arrogant, especially after leaving work interactions feeling unseen. But psychology asks us to pause, because what looks like confidence in the office is often something very different underneath. Many people who dominate conversations at work aren't trying to impress you. They're trying to stay relevant. In corporate environments, attention equals safety. If people are listening, you matter, you're visible, you're not replaceable. For someone with stable self-worth, silence is neutral, it's just space. But for someone whose sense of value is fragile, silence feels dangerous. When the conversation shifts away from them, a quiet fear appears. If I'm not speaking, do I have to fade into the background? So they talk. They interrupt meetings. They redirect discussions. They relate every issue back to themselves. Not because they believe they're more important than others, but because talking has become their way of staying anchored. I speak, therefore I exist. This is where the damage happens. Sociologist Charles Derber described two types of responses: support responses and shift responses. At work, the difference is everything. You say, "I've been overwhelmed with my workload lately." A support response sounds like, "That makes sense. What's been hitting you the hardest?" A shift response sounds like, "Oh yeah, same. I'm drowning too. Last week I stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing reports." The topic stays the same, but the emotional focus quietly moves. People who dominate conversations rely heavily on shift responses. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but because support responses require something they don't feel safe giving. They require patience, emotional regulation, letting someone else be the focus. In competitive work environments, that can feel risky. So instead of sharing space, they occupy it, and you're left holding the silence they can't tolerate. One of the most exhausting workplace patterns is something psychologists often call competitive suffering. You say you're tired. They're more tired. You say your week was stressful. Theirs was a disaster. You mention burnout. They escalate it. On the surface, it looks like empathy, but emotionally, it feels like erasure. Instead of being heard, your experience gets overwritten. Pain becomes a competition for visibility. And over time, you learn a quiet rule. Don't share too much at work. It will just get taken over. Empathy exits the room. Professional distance takes its place. This behavior doesn't start in adulthood. Many people who dominate conversations grew up in environments where emotional attention was inconsistent. Being quiet didn't make you respectful. It made you invisible. They learned early. Attention had to be earned. Presence had to be maintained. Silence meant being overlooked. So they adapted. Talking became protection. Visibility became safety. Then adulthood reinforced it. Workplaces reward assertiveness, visibility, self-promotion, but they don't teach emotional balance. So a survival strategy turns into a relational problem. The thing that once kept them safe now quietly isolates them. If you're empathetic, this hits harder. You listen. You regulate. You make space. You absorb emotional weight without realizing it. You leave meetings feeling heavy. Not because work is hard, but because connection is one-sided. Over time, empathetic employees stop sharing, withdraw quietly, disengage emotionally, not out of anger, out of self-preservation. Empathy without reciprocity becomes emotional labor, and no one can sustain that forever. So what do we do with this? First, clarity. Their behavior is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their hunger. You are not boring. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for mutual presence. Setting boundaries at work doesn't require aggression. It can sound like, I need a moment to finish my thought. Or, can we stay on this for a second? That's not rudeness. That's clarity. And if you recognize yourself on the other side of this pattern, awareness is not an accusation. Try this small experiment. Ask a question, then don't fill the silence. Let the discomfort exist. You won't disappear. You won't lose value. You don't need to perform to matter. True professional presence comes from being grounded, not dominating. If this video felt personal, it's because many workplaces quietly run on unspoken emotional dynamics. And now, you can see one of them. This channel explores the psychology behind work, identity, and emotional survival in modern careers. If you want more conversations like this, consider subscribing. And if this resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel a little less invisible at work today. Thank you for watching.